What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about Space Marines 2. Now, I have been playing it, okay? I've been doing a little playthrough on the channel. Follow it, okay, if you are so inclined. But I have been having a blast playing this game. But there are a few things I just can't help but notice, and that is going to be the weight of the Space Marine. Now, from an animation perspective, one of the toughest things that any animator will try to achieve is a sense of weight. Followed up, I would say the second toughest is actually good acting. That's difficult, all right? But staying on weight, if you think about it, what does everyone learn? The bouncing ball. Now, people are probably talking about, well, what about, spacing, and timing? Spacing and timing are tools to show what? Weight. When you think of the bouncing ball, you're trying to do the spacing and you're trying to get your timing right to show the weight of the ball. Now that spacing and timing will change based off of the weight of the ball, right? The spacing is going to be very different for a volleyball as opposed to a tennis ball, as opposed to a bowling ball. That's usually common homework that you have to do in your introductory to animation. Now, having said that, when it comes to the Space Marines, I did a little due diligence, but obviously they're superhuman soldiers. That's what they are. And their armor is drilled into them and they go through a lot of surgery to get to where they are. But they're massive individuals. I think 8 or 9 feet if I'm not mistaken. And so you have to think about that. You have all this armor and they're a 9 feet, man. So with all that armor, they're obviously going to be moving slow. As someone who was an 8 foot and had a bunch of armor on them, would be moving slow as well. So the problem is, it's not necessarily that, okay, we have a Marine, we have to move them slow. We have to give a sense of weight of how heavy this armor is. Is it really heavy? Is it medium heavy? Like, what type of heavy are we talking about? In addition to that, it's a video game. It's something that myself didn't really think about until I actually started to get an Unreal Engine and mess with states and animations and things like that, and I'm actually getting the idea feel. So you have this heavy piece of equipment, but you also want it to be responsive. Now, usually those two do not go hand in hand, all right? They're very much the opposite. You can't be heavy and big, huge, but also move, at the turn of the dime. It's not gonna happen. So they have to compromise. One example we have is we look at the walk. Now, it is responsive, but how they got that responsiveness while showing weight is really what makes this absolutely awesome. Because if you look at the walk, it's a walk cycle, right? And there is this great Twitter thread of one of the animators who worked on, I forgot, with the big punching robots. I can't remember. It wasn't Transformers. It was Pacific Rim. That's a movie. I think his name was Brendan Body, and he goes over a set of things of how he accomplished that. So, few things, not really complicated, but one of the things he does, he gives an example, is slowing down the animation, right? So you have a walk, and you slow down the animation. His example, you have someone stepping up onto some type of foundation, like a step or something, and they slow it down. Then you add the overlap and drag. Slow it down, the overlap and drag, and then you add a little bit of wobble. So you add all that together, you get this sense of weight. You get this sense of weight, and then he goes on further to show staging. Now, I notice a lot of the Marine shots, in many cases, it's usually an upshot, right? It's upshot showing their dominance, showing how big and their stature and all of that. That's usually a lot of the action shots you see in the cutscenes of Space Marines 2. I haven't been in the game, but as of right now, I've noticed a lot of those shots are very, very cinematic when it comes to framing them on the screen. And when it comes to this walk, you have that. You have the same thing that the animator was talking about of creating a sense of weight. And they do that mainly in here, I would say, through the up and down of the walk cycle. Now, as we know, we do an up and down of the walk cycle, and what they do here is that they exaggerate it. So you really have, if you look at the timing, the timing is like, right? So there's really hanging in the air before he goes down and then immediately comes back up, right? So it's a bam, 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 like almost like a stomp, but it's not a stomp. It's more so gravity taking over. If you've ever had to wear gear or something that's really heavy or like a heavy backpack, it takes more energy for you to lift your foot up and stomp than it does for a gravity to just naturally take its, take control, right? Your main focus is just lifting it so you can move, right? Just, you're not really having so much control where you're lifting your foot all the way up and stamping and stomping it down to the ground. Your focus just let me lift it so I can move a little, move a little, move a little. And what really sells it here is that wobble, is that overlap, right? That overlap and drag of that bam, he's going down. Now the backpack or the jetpack or whatever that is really sells it as well. Because you have that sense of overlap as well. So when you look at some of the, especially in video games, sometimes they'll have like a cape or a feather or something where you can get that sense of overlap to the animation in many cases. That's what I'm starting to see. But in this, you have this backpack that really sells it because it's an overlap and drag of that. So you get this bam, 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 bam. In addition with the plates of the armor, all of it goes in to sell the weight of him, gravity just taking over, right? It really sells it. And also is responsive. We combine this when it comes to the run. The run, now instead of very much of the up and down, because there's not like, up and down because you're running, but what they do is they sell it with the posing, the timing of the posing, because they're really holding those poses for long. And it's it's really a moving hold, really long moving hold. And you can see by the bam, 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 that almost of a striking when it comes to the animation, when it comes to bam, 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 bam. Very, very different from how a regular person would be running. Even with holding the pose, it's very rigid when it comes to the animation. And just to prove the point, I even sped up the animation. It's still a good run cycle, but it loses that sense of weight. It loses that sense of weight when they're going from here to here to here so fast. So by slowing it down and actually allowing it to play, it gives a heavier run cycle. If you combine that with the subtle, very subtle, I didn't notice the first time, but there's a subtle little camera shake. Subtle little camera shake every single time that he lands. Not with the walk, I didn't see with the walk, but with the run, subtle little camera shake when he's running, which actually enhances to sell this concept, hey, this is a heavy guy, right? There are things moving, there's a lot of weight going that's compressing and, expanding. Like ground is shaking when this guy is running. So I think that Space Marine 2 is not only a great game, but it's something great to notice how they implement weight. Now, obviously, this is different from feature film because, once again, the player has to experience it, right? There's the fact that it's a playable character. So I think it's really interesting just to study as far as little tips and tricks and how to implement that in your own animation of let's see, how do I make this character feel heavy? How do I make this run cycle feel heavy? How do I make this walk cycle feel heavy? And then once you get the physics and the physicality of it, then we get into character. And that's when really character animation starts to shine, in my opinion. Nevertheless, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I'll put the links down below so you can check it out. And until next time, guys, keep animating.